today. Now, the latest on that remarkable heist in London's Hatton Garden last Sunday, in which a reported £60 million worth of jewellery and other valuable items were stolen from safety deposit boxes. The Metropolitan Police, which described the raid as highly audacious, has today released images of the incident, but they only did so after the pictures appeared first in the Daily Mirror. The stills come from a video said to show a gang of up to 6 men in high-visibility jackets pulling off the robbery. The paper said the men made 3 visits to the site before leaving on Easter Sunday with the contents of 72 safety deposit boxes in wheelie bins and bags. On Friday, it emerged that police knew a burglar alarm had gone off, but failed to respond. No arrests have been made. Let's speak to John O'Connor, his former head of Scotland Yard's flying squad. Good evening to you, John.
Hello.
I'm not sure where to start on this. I mean, it's a remarkable story. I mean, let's talk about the CCTV images published first in the Daily Mirror and only then released by the Met. Curious.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? I don't understand how, when the police had sealed off the crime scene and surrounding areas, how they didn't seize all of the CCT that was available. I think it's astonishing that the Mirror have got hold of it before the police. And that causes all kinds of problems because it's not. I'm not even sure the police would have wanted to have released it at this stage. You know, it's nice to keep some stuff back when you're interrogating people, but they don't know what you've got. And I don't blame the Mirror. I mean, they're in the business of information and news and getting exclusive stories. I don't blame them one iota.
Yeah, I'm intrigued there, John, that you say...
Sorry?
I'm intrigued that you say that the police wouldn't necessarily have wanted these images out there. I would have assumed that any images that might lead to the identification of the individuals, given that there have been no arrests so far, and involving the public in that, would have been useful.
But you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what strategy has been adopted by the police, whether or not they already know the identities of these people. There's more to it than just arresting the people that carried out the burglary. There's the recovery of the goods. So, you know, it's limited the strategic options of the police by the Mirror publishing the stills from the CCTV, and in fact, it was, as you know, it's published on the internet as well. But you know, it's limited the options. As I said, I don't blame the Mirror, but I think the police have got some questions to answer as to why they didn't get them first.
Yeah, and it appears from what we know anyway, what's been reported, that the gang spent the entire weekend breaking into the vault. There's the initial breaking and then 2 subsequent visits. It does seem an incredibly well-planned, well-executed robbery.
Well, it does. When you consider, you know, this is presumably a fortified building with safe deposit boxes and a vault and the whole thing, and there's no sign of a forcible entry. I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, it seems to me that, you know, windows or doors were left open. That's how it appears. They knew exactly what they were going into, and when you look at the footage that's available, I mean, they just seem like a group of happy-go-lucky workers going to put an extension on someone's house. They don't look at all under threat, under pressure. It's as though they knew that they wouldn't be intercepted. It was really quite remarkable for, you know, people carrying out a burglary of that magnitude. And the other aspect of it as well, which I think, you know, might make a connection to the fire at Holborn, which was a gas fire, as we now know, that one of the robbers had a tabard on with gas on the back. I mean, it's almost as though that was created to cause a diversion and to use up the resources of the police and the fire brigade and so forth in dealing with what was a very serious incident very nearby.
Yes, and perhaps one of the numerous embarrassing features about this episode, I would suggest, for the Metropolitan Police, perhaps the most embarrassing of all, though, the fact that they knew an alarm had gone off, and it was an alarm at a safety deposit centre, not just sort of a random house on an estate somewhere, yet they didn't respond. How can that be?
It is absolutely unbelievable. I think the police, like many public service departments, don't use a lot of lateral thought, and I think that they're very rigid in the guidelines that they set, and there are guidelines about if a faulty alarm goes off a couple of times, then they don't respond the third time. Well, I think common sense would tell you that safety deposit building at Passover when the place is likely to be completely left alone for at least 4 days, it should have had the response of a police officer. And the difference between a police officer and a security guard from the alarm company is that the police have got much more powers to get the key holder out to open up the premises and check the premises. And the game would have been up had that happened. So it seems to me that a golden opportunity was missed through sticking rigidly to rules of whether a call is a priority or not. They gave it low status, I think, because of previous calls which had been false. Well, some of those calls may very well have been emanated from the villains themselves.
So they could have been themselves part of a diversionary tactic, for all we know.
And I just think that, when some villains show a bit of wit and a bit of cunning and a bit of guile, they seem to leave the police service miles behind.
Is there a danger here, John, sorry to interrupt you, that, we're describing in terms of a heist? The Metropolitan Police have themselves described it as highly audacious. It's been front page news in a couple of the newspapers, and one of them today, the Mirror, was even giving names to the alleged culprits, almost as if they were characters in a film, that we can make light of this when actually, we're almost making heroes of guys who stole £60 million worth, a reported sum, of other people's property.
Well, I don't think that that victims of safe deposit robberies get an awful lot of sympathy from the public, because the public imagine that some of that money is hidden from the Inland Revenue, hidden from HM Customs. It probably isn't, but that's the image that they have. They also have the belief that it's gangsters putting their own spoils away and keeping it from prying eyes. So I don't think.
We don't know that though, do we, John?
But that's the image the public have got, which is why, if you remember the great train robbery, the media and the authorities made great play of the violence meted out to the driver, and that seemed to sway public opinion against the robbers. Well, when you have a team like this who apparently haven't caused any injury and certainly haven't threatened anybody, and they've got clean away, and it may be, in the public mind, it may be ill-gotten gains anyway, they couldn't care less, frankly. That's the attitude.
That's interesting you say that, John. I mean, clearly it isn't a victimless crime, and this may just be the earnings turned into diamonds or whatever of hard-working people. Where do we think these gems might now end up, John?
Well, there was one newspaper report suggesting that they'd gone to the Middle East, but I think if you go back historically, when the raid took place on the Millennium Dome and the De Beers diamonds were on display there, it was believed that the diamonds were going to be on, if they'd got them, would have been on their way to Spain and then on their way through an intermediary in Spain, on their way to the Russian mafia, because Russia has a diamond industry. Russia very much, certainly in those days, was very wide open and working well away from the regulatory authorities of the De Beers company. So it's quite likely they could have ended up there. They've got the skills there in the underworld to cut diamonds and so forth. It's likely that could have been the route, or it could have been because they may have been domestic diamonds of not international renown. It might very well have been that they'd have just gone and been absorbed by fences in the underworld in London. It could have easily happened that way. So there may not be anywhere. In my own view, would be that when it's as well organised as that, I think that they wouldn't have rushed to get them out of the country. I think they'd have just hidden them away very, very quietly and just waited until the heat died down and then released them in dribs and drabs, because some of them are not going to be identifiable. But what I find quite astonishing, the length of time they had in the vault, they didn't open all the safe deposits, all the boxes. They only opened 70. Well, there was some 300 there, I believe, and it seems strange that only 70 were opened, which might mean that they were after something specific, or it might mean that they knew who the owners of all the boxes were, and there were some people there they didn't want to upset. So it's quite an interesting scenario, because on the last time we had a major safe deposit robbery, it was at Lloyd's Bank in Baker Street in the early 70s, where they tunnelled from a nearby shop and tunnelled under the vault and blew the floor of the vault out. But a lot of the victims there, I use victims in inverted commas, a lot of the victims there were villains themselves who knew the identity of those that carried out the raid. And at some stage they were in some danger of physical violence. So, you know, it might very well be that the ones that were left behind were owned by people that were known.
Yes, and let me just ask you this, John. You know, based on your long experience with the Metropolitan Police and, you know, these kind of glamorous, almost prestigious crimes involving theft of gems, how often do the culprits get brought to justice?
Always. There's not been, we used to call them project robberies, and going back to the Great Train robbery right the way through, there were very, very few cases that stayed in the public eye and in the of interest to the media, such as Brinksmat, the Knightsbridge Safe Deposit robbery, Lloyd's Bank at Baker Street, the Curtain Lane Security Express robbery. I mean, those were the major crimes. Oh, and the other one, the Bank of America in Davis Street, where they cleaned out the safe deposit boxes. All of those cases were solved, and all of those cases resulted in some recovery of the goods.
John, thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight. John O'Connor, the former head of Scotland Yard's Flying Squad. A really fascinating insight. You're listening to a special news hour here on 5 Live. It's a remarkable story. I mean, let's talk about the CCTV images published first in the Daily Mirror and only then released by the Met. Curious.
Yeah, it's remarkable, isn't it? I don't understand how when the police had sealed off the crime scene and...
But they only did so after the pictures appeared first in the Daily Mirror. The stills come from a video said to show a gang of up to 6 men in high-visibility jackets pulling off the robbery. The paper said the men made 3 visits to the site before leaving on Easter Sunday with the contents of 72 safety deposits a day. Now, the latest on that remarkable heist in London's Hatton Garden last Sunday, in which a reported £60 million worth of jewellery and other valuable items were stolen from safety deposit boxes. The Metropolitan Police, which described the raid as highly audacious, has today released images of the incident boxes in wheelie bins and bags. On Friday, it emerged that police knew a burglar alarm had gone off, but failed to respond. No arrests have been made. Let's speak to John O'Connor, he's former head of Scotland Yard's Flying Squad. Good evening to you, John.
Hello.
I'm not sure where to start on this. I mean, it's...
Surrounding areas, how they didn't seize all of the CCT that was available. I think it's astonishing that the Mirror have got hold of it before the police. And that causes all kinds of problems, because it's not... I'm not even sure the police would have wanted to have released it at this stage. You know,